conveys.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Truth and Rhythm. Brought to you by funkandstuff.net, this is the interview show that gets deep in the pocket with contemporary music's foremost masters of the groove. I am your host, Scott Dr. GX Goldfine, musicologist, creative arts journalist, and multimedia pro. Whether you're watching the video version of this show or the audio-only podcast version, I thank you so much for your continued interest and support in this show. If you enjoy this programming, there are several ways to help support Truth and Rhythm, as well as contribute to further enhancements and expansion, plus get some sweet perks and rewards in the process. First, subscribe to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube, which is where Truth and Rhythm lives, and be an advocate by spreading the word among fellow funk, jazz, and R&B music lovers. Second, join Truth and Rhythm's new membership program through Patreon, which features 3 tiers for truth believers, truth seekers, and truth crusaders. You can also submit a direct donation to the cause anytime at funkandstuff.net. At that site, which is loaded with awesome content, you can also purchase the book Everything's on the One, The First Guide of Funk, shop for official Truth and Rhythm and Funk and Stuff merchandise, and use the Amazon links for all of your online purchases, which allocates a percentage to this show. Sponsorship opportunities are available as well. Contact me directly at scottg@funkandstuff.net. For those of you who go the extra step in supporting the show, you have my heartfelt gratitude for allowing us to continue to shine the light on those special artists whose quest is to find truth in rhythm. I'm delighted to welcome to the Truth and Rhythm Mothership, all the way from the Netherlands, founding bassist, composer, and producer Bart Verhoeven, of the superb Dutch funk band 7-Eleven, and a noteworthy solo artist in his own right. Founded in 1987, the P-Funk and Bootsy and JB's inspired group helped keep real rubbery and horn-driven funk alive during the 1990s and 2000s by releasing 7 studio albums and burning up concert stages throughout Europe. Beginning in 1998, Dodge launched his solo career with groove-heavy albums of his own that include help from some of his funk heroes. Dodge, welcome to the show. How are you?
Yes, coming to directly from the car stereo. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So glad we could make this connection across the Atlantic here.
The big pile of water, the big body of water. No problem.
Yeah, well, believe it or not, I've never been across it. So
No, come over.
I'd love to.
Have a look. The old country.
Yeah. So, and what city or town are you in?
Well, I live in the Netherlands in the south. The little town, a village is called Uden. And like 40,000 people are living here. And yeah, I work as a graphic designer on a daily basis in the village nearby. And for the rest, I play bass. And I am Dodge. Not dodging the funk. I'm not dodging.
All right. Well, we're going to get deep into the funk, which we love, right? So,
yes, we do.
Dodge, what drove you to music in the first place, and in particular funk and also bass?
Well, the music started, it was already in the DNA, and it came out, I think I was maybe 4 or 5 years. I started drumming on the jars, on the marmalade jars on the breakfast table, and my parents and siblings got sick of it, so I got my first drums, started drumming. I went into a drum band is that a drum corps, you know, playing the snare drum and stuff. And because of my length, they asked me to play the bass drum. That's a huge drum in front of you, and you smack it. And that's where basically it started for me. It was marching in a groove with a group of people in the same rhythm. That already did something for me, and the discipline, of course, the reading of the notes. You know, I learned that over there. And then the next step was from the drum corps to a drum set. And but I wasn't up at the at the right instrument. I first had to go through a whole development, playing in bands, all kinds of music, and well, finally, I think it was 1975 in Holland, we could tune in on American Forces Network. That was in Heidelberg. There were in Germany, the country next to the Netherlands, were like 100,000 military stationed, and they had their own music station. And I tuned into it and heard straight from, it was actual, you say it was, what was happening in the States was happening on American Forces Network. So I heard the most recent tracks. And then there was this guy called Wolfman Jack. You remember him?
Oh, yeah.
I got a sore throat even listening to him. It is Wolfman Jack, playing the best music. And he was playing all the funky stuff what was happening back then. It was back in the 70s and earlier. And then I heard the P-Funk for the first time. P-Funk, Parliament, Funkadelic, and then I think it was 75, the first hit album of a hit single of Bootsy Collins. And that changed it. That was the crossroad. You know, then I had to go that way because I know I don't have to explain it to you, but the funk groove and the music of Bootsy is different from even other kinds of funk. It's you got P-Funk, okay, but then you got this special niche bass neutron infected funk, silly, cartoon mind. And it struck me. I couldn't understand. I'm a white guy. I'm whiter than me. You can't get them. But yeah, it's kind of universal. It hit me anyway. I couldn't understand the lyrics. They often, you know, the songs often are children's songs or something out of a commercial.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was sometimes hard to understand what he was singing and what they were chanting about, but well, liked it anyway. So then that was one part, and then the other thing was that I was in about 5 bands drumming, different styles, and then I met a guy in a band who was slapping the bass, you know, with his thumb. And there's a time in your life you see that for the first time. So I saw it do, and oh, that's how they make that sound. I thought maybe it was a clavinet, you know, it was a kind of a keyboard, but it's striking your thumb on the strings of the bass guitar. That was the next epiphany. So these two came together, and I wanted to play bass. I didn't want to play drums anymore. So it was a kind of a time between it. So there were. I was back then in in bands where I played the drums and played the bass, and then finally I stopped drumming. I made my own bass. This one here is the first one I made myself. I saw this one on a Bootsy album, and I had a little. In the meantime, I made a little Bootsy room with stuff I could get my hands on, and I wanted to make a bass to hang in the Bootsy room as a fan, you know. And then the guy who could work the wood said, "Why don't you make it a working bass?" You know, I'm a drummer, you know. But okay, let's make it a real bass. So he did his thing. I got some real bass guitar parts, you know, the pickups, the little bit electronics on it, the knobs and stuff, and the neck is from another bass. So there it was. I was home. My ship came in, so I stopped drumming, sold the drum kit, everything out, and yeah, the crossroads in life. The crossroads in life. I went the other way, and the funny thing is, when you have drummed, or when you can drum, it's easy to slap. It's for a bass player who plays with his fingers, and it's a little bit harder. It can be done, of course, but it's a little bit harder to change from popping to slapping, because you slap with two hands. It's kind of drumming. It's kind of drumming on the bass guitar. So that went really fast. I learned it fast. I never took lessons in drums. I took lessons, but in bass guitar, I taught myself. And so that's a long answer, but that's how it went. That's how I got to in the music and in the playing the bass.
That's a great answer. Really interesting to me. Because, me with my parallel life over here in the States, kind of discovering it also, at that time.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
But really fascinating to know that, a person like yourself was experiencing it like that where you were.
Yes.
And what about your friends and family and people like that? Did they think you were out of your mind, or did they relate to the music also, or?
Well, the Netherlands, it's a very tiny country in the north of Europe. There are a few people who know what it is. I wouldn't pretend I know what it is, but know about funk music. When you say, well, I like funk, the first thing they say is, punk? No, funk. And then they say, you mean the F word? No, not that. It's funk, funky music. And it's hard to explain, so you can't. My friends and family was not into it. They didn't know what it was, and well, one time I practiced at home playing the bass, and for example, my father, he was working all the time, and he knew I was making music, but he never really saw it until he saw me play the bass. And doing a slap solo. I was really, when I was younger, I was playing every available note full, slapping it. And then, he saw me play the bass, he stood up, yeah, Bart! Yeah! It was, so it got him too, in a way. And that's basically what he experienced, is what happens when we play with 7-Eleven or Dodge. People don't know it really. Well, now it's 2021. It's more people know about funk and the history of the funk. But back then, well, not many people around here knew what it was, and they wouldn't say I was out of my mind, but funny music until they saw it. It gets you when you see it and hear it live and from a live band. It gets you. Yes, and so. That's what, and sometimes it was a little bit lonely. It's in the place I lived, I knew one guy who was into funk, and there was one record store who sold one compartment of funk and P-Funk, and that was it. So, and then we had, of course, American Forces Network. We tuned in every day when it was on the funk shows. That's a little bit lonely, It's but that made it the fact it was special made it also kind of attractive for me back then. You know what I mean? It's not everybody's doing it, so yeah, felt good to be in that. Although we were of different color, maybe of the people who made it originally, I still dug it.
Well, I imagine even in the Netherlands, if you had mentioned like James Brown, they probably would have gotten some idea.
Correct. Yes, that's still till today. When people say what kind of music you play, it's funk, and they don't know what it is. I say, James Brown. Yes, well, that's basically That's where it started, and then a whole universe. James Brown was a door, and when you open that, you get in the funky universe of every kind of flavor.
You know, in America at that time, it was a totally a black phenomenon, African American
Yeah.
phenomenon. So I felt out on an island too, because, you know,
Yeah.
being white, I was going to the shows and I didn't see any other, you know, here in America, I didn't see any other white faces. So,
I
and my
understand.
family
Yeah.
wondered what the heck was up with me too.
Yeah.
And, you know, the frustration also was that so often we try to describe then, you know, what funk was, and people here, especially white people, equated it with disco. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I know, oh, yes, and no, that's totally different, you know. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I understand the lost in the translation concept.
Yes. Yeah. That's it. Maybe it's a lot of people experience the same thing. Maybe we did. Yeah.
Yeah, we're brothers in some sense.
Yes.
Yeah. Uh, so, did you find, you know, learning how to play some of those Bootsy parts and Funkadelic Parliament bass parts difficult and challenging, or did you pick right up on it?
Now, I never played something by Bootsy. Never played a funk cover. I can play maybe Mothership Connection, because one time we played with Dawn Cell live. We had to rehearse that and study that. But funny that when you ask that, I never took a Bootsy record and looked what he was playing. Never. No, I couldn't play one track of Bootsy Collins. Zero. I have no idea what he's doing. Maybe I want to keep it like that, you know. I don't want to reveal the the formula behind it. I know, of course, it's funk formula, it's on the one and stuff, but the way he plays, when I listen to it, I want to keep it that way. I don't want to touch it as a bass player. So it's my main influence, the way he plays and the scene making, because I got an enormous rack of bass effects, and when you play what you know through a bass effect Bootsy is playing, it sounds like him. But I couldn't play one track of him. No, never did it. And by the way, when we started with 7-Eleven, we were, of course, you have to talk about what you're going to do, and I started no covers, none, and the others, no, none. I want to play it what we come up with, new stuff, and we did. Sometimes when we had horn sections, they imitated. You know, they put a piece of horny horns or Fred Wesley and Maceo in it, but no tracks. We played and we imitated nothing further, and myself neither.
Well, that's very unusual. You know, I mean, it's a credit to you guys to be that creative and push yourselves that way, but very unusual.
Yeah, it's like computer. That's what a brain is. Asking it to come up with something. When you put all the funk you ever heard, put it in, and what comes out? You process it to something yourself. And when I listen to a band who is playing music composed by somebody else, you can say, okay, that's a nice twist to it, but no, you can't beat the original, I would say. Leave it and make something else. If you're a musician, create something new.
Yeah.
Take every inspiration you got from whatever. One time I heard there was a classical composer who had a bird in his garden. You ever heard that story? It was Liszt, a guy like that, a classic dude with long curly hair, and he had a beautiful bird singing every day, and he was on his piano. Wait, whatever inspiration you get, but yeah, wherever it's coming from. But I wouldn't imitate it. I imitate the bass. I told you how it started, and that didn't feel good because it's not my idea to make a star bass. I made it as a fan, and then I had to get. I was waiting till I would meet Bootsy or get in contact with him to ask him. Is it okay? Is it okay? I'm using your star bass image and the glasses, the star glasses, and I got suits with stars. Yeah. And he said, he didn't say it to me directly, but Patty, his wife, he told me, yeah, I asked him, and he was flattered. He was flattered by it. So he said, yeah, keep on doing what you're doing. It's funky. Okay. And that was it. So I'm funking with a permit on my star bass. But imitating his music, I wouldn't do that.
I hear
I don't know. I make it. Yeah.
So, how and when did you get the Dodge name?
Yeah, that's a nice story. When we were rehearsing and playing with 7-Eleven, it was a rather big band, maybe 7, 8, or 9 persons, was varying a little bit, with a horn section, a rapper, a singer, and they all have got nicknames. We got a singer called Juliet, that was kind of shortened to Jewel. She got her own way of writing it, so everybody got his. We got a rapper. Rappers have their own nickname, RMC, and so everybody had a name. And I had this star bass and the whole haberdashery. So when every time I came up on the stage for a solo or did something, they were called, "Oh, this Bootsy, the whitest Bootsy you've ever seen." And one time in a rehearsal, maybe we're 10 years together or so, or maybe earlier, I said, "That's it, enough. I am no Bootsy. I got the star bass and all that." And then the rapper said, "Okay, we're gonna call you Dodge." I always drive one, and I'm always bragging about them, that they're so good and faithful cars, And it's for me, there's one brand, the Dodge. So, okay, we're gonna call you Dodge. Well, that was worse, give me a car name. But he's kind of consistent. He was consistent. We're gonna call you Dodge. And so we were playing. We played a lot, and every time Dodge on the bass, Dodge this, Dodge that. Then in '98, I wanted to record something by myself, so I was looking for a name. Yeah, my last name is Verhoeven. Should it be Groovin' with Verhoeven or something like that? Now let's stick to the Dodge. I put the Dodge name on the record. I put the car I had back then. It was a Dodge Aries, very small car, and then it was a fact. And then when you play somewhere and you get off the stage, and your fans, "Hey Dodge, come over, give me a signature," and "Mr. Dodge, can I ask you a question?" Well, okay. So he baptized it. We call it that, and okay, that's it then. And now I'm used to it. It's a bit funny, take a car name, a car brand, and name a guy after it. But why not? I'm not dodging the funk.
Well, you know what I mean. There's a thread there because the heart of automaking is Detroit, and Detroit is one of the prime funk towns where United Sound was and all that. So
there you go.
Yeah.
And how about the Chrysler logo
with the star?
I mean,
yeah,
that's the star. We have the star right there. Dodge caught between P-Funk and the Chrysler Corporation, baby. Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a funky situation, but yeah. Well, what the rapper always says, he named himself, I guess, but a nickname is given. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's funny when you say, "Oh, that's my name. My stage name is that." It's funnier or more real, I would say, when somebody gives it to you. This your nickname is. We're gonna call you that. You know what I mean?
Well, and
Yeah.
so I got to ask, how did you get into the Dodge vehicle so much? What is that? Do you still have one?
Yes, I have a 74 Dart with the slant six. You know anything about cars?
A little.
It's the slant six is a slanted. It's like this. The engine is slanted in the engine bay, and it's a six-cylinder. Yeah, I was as a kid. I was working in a garage, in a shop, and changing oil, washing cars. My dad went to that garage and said, "Don't you have a Saturday job for my son?" Yeah, let him come over and he can wash cars and change oil. I did that for a lot of years, so I got into cars a little bit. Then when I was maybe 20 something, 20, 21, the shop owner said, "Hey, Bart, is this something for you?" And there was a rusty old Dodge Dart Custom, 4-door sedan, 74 model. Oh man, and back in the days, that was in Holland, it was a big car. In the States, it's small. Here, it's a big car. And it's used by drug dealers back in the days, So it was a little bit pimpy. But yeah, it was cheap. It was like $600. And I bought it. It was my first car. And that's, you sold. The first car, the one, can only be one. And every time I have the same car still, not the same car, but same model, same everything, same color. Every time I step in the car, it's back when I'm 21. It's, how you call it? Sentiment, youth sentiment. It's takes me back every time. But back then, I couldn't afford it. It was rotten, rusty. It was in need of an overhaul, really. The engine wasn't good. So I had to sell it. And my next car was a Dodge again. I stuck to the brand. So, and now after, maybe it was 2013. There was exactly the same car was still for sale, and I bought it again. So full circle, back at the same feeling, the same interior. Yes, slant six. Yeah.
Nice.
So that, yeah.
So how did you find like minds to form 7-Eleven?
Yes, I was. Somebody asked me. It was '85 for a band, just to play bass for one concert. It was a kind of a party for that firm, and it was a band was put together by people who worked in that firm. And but they didn't have a bass player, so they asked me. Somebody knew me, and okay, I play the bass. But when you bring a star bass to the stage, something happens. If people recognize, something happens. So that it wasn't me, but it was. I would always say it was the bass who did something with the band. It lifted. I put in my funky thing, and the band became. That one concert became a success, and we could make a record right away. That was a dream come true. We were a band put together from different. I was a secretary, a guy from the mailroom, and he could drum a bit. A few secretaries could sing. There was a guy, sales guy who could play guitar, and there was me on the bass. And the director, after the show, jumped on the stage, and this band is going to make a record. What? I mean, it was okay, but so we recorded the first record. The band was called the Savannah Fun Brigade. The SFB was the initials of the company. It was called SFB. So they came up with that name. We recorded. It was a bad record. Was bad, but the funny thing was. These were covers of the guy who put the band together, a little bit of Kid Creole-ish, no funk, and then the guy in the studio, with the big tape recorder tapes. The engineer said, "We got 3 minutes left on the tape for the album. What do you want to do?" I So I want to do something. Let's make some funk. Let's make a funk groove in 3 minutes or two. And that really, that was my first really experience with recording funk out of nothing, with a few guys who got it. There was the keyboard player and the guitar player. They understood. They got it. Yeah, that's what we want to do. So the band broke up after 1.5 years, and the three of us got together. Let's make funk. Let's make some funk. Let's do that little track we did, and so we did. And then that's how the first three got together, and the keyboard player left, and me and the guitar player Dice. That was so we started 7-Eleven. That's 33 years ago. So we've been around a while, and along the way, Dodge got his room to do his thing. But that's how we started, basically. So and short after we three got together, I got in touch with a drummer who was in another band I played bass in, and I asked him, "Do you feel like playing in a funk band in Amsterdam?" We were in the south, so that's 1.5 hour drive. Yeah, let's go. He was a young kid. So after a year, we got Captain Herc on the drums. So the four, the drummer, the guitar player, and me were the original 3 7-Eleven members. Yeah, we got this rhythm section together. We played so long; it's so tight. I would say you would never find a better one. It's Dice is playing the rhythm guitar, Captain Herc the drums, me on the bass. I'm a little bit up front, as the drummer explained it one time to me. I'm a little bit up front in the note. I'm a little bit hasty. The guitar player is kind of lazy, yeah, and the drummer's and that is in the pocket. As I heard it, as long as we're playing with 7-Eleven, I heard it a million times. Your rhythm section, and I say, I know. We're like one instrument. We're 3 people, but we're one groove. It's yeah. You get it? You know what I mean?
That's what makes it work, man.
Yeah.
When I first became aware of 7-Eleven in the 1990s, it was, the 90s was a rough decade for funk fans because, there wasn't much happening. Very few originals were still doing it, and it didn't seem like, new people were coming out. And, when I found out that, across the ocean in Europe, there was this group that was like doing authentic sounding funk, it kind of blew my mind a little bit. But I was so happy and excited that it was still being continued on, and that it sounded so authentic, and that it was, horn driven. It wasn't, hung up on like, new electronics and things like that. It was real. And, so, but it was hard to find 7-Eleven records in the U.S. I mean, it was a challenge.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, we signed up with the record company called Challenge. So they tried it. Yes, I know what you mean. And over here it was hard too. Yes, there were a lot of in the 80s. There were like maybe 25 funk bands for a small country as the Netherlands is. And then after a couple of years, just 7-Eleven. They all disappeared. It's hard to stay together and maybe stay real to the funk. Although 7-Eleven is not, I would say, not strictly pure funk, because we're a combination, the sum of the members. You got RMC is rapping. We got Jewel, who's a real vocalist. Yeah, you got the horns. Yeah, keyboarders do their own thing. So it's not, I wouldn't say not really P-Funk, but when you, the fact that you're, what you just said, is that the message comes over, it comes across.
Well, there was definitely so much, P-Funk and JBs and meters, and that type of influence in it. So definitely came through. And from here, I discovered these other groups too, and I wondered what was going on in the Netherlands, because of Gotcha and
Yeah.
Octave Pussy and
Yes.
you
Yes.
guys, and I was like, is there like a huge funk movement there? What was it like over there?
Yes. The Holland is so small. We have like 17 million people, but and when you got something niche like funk, you kind of sooner or later get to know everyone doing the things they're doing. And the guys from Octave Pussy and not so much Gotcha. That's these are, I would say, a level up. They were really popular in Holland. Radio. They got airplay, and they toured in Holland, and they got a really fan base. But yeah, when you and they because of their fame, they got into trouble. Personally, that's what I heard. But you got to ask them themselves. But that's what I heard. So the fame thing comes with a price. So they gave up. And then after maybe 10 years, hey, Gotcha is back together. Then the venues are full again with all these old fans, and they still got it. But the band's a little bit on our level, below the popular music radio airplay level. Most of us they know each other. It's I wouldn't say a funk movement, but we know what we're doing. We're doing the same thing in a very unfunky country, trying to make funk music, and we got this different piece of the funk. I mean, Octave Pussy is rough, more to the Parliament Funkadelic, dirty old funk. The more of the P, and we're like a little bit cleaned, shaved. It's somewhat cleaner, maybe more to the jazz. Where we played at 100 jazz festivals, always because of the solos on with keyboards and horns. You often end up as a showstopper on the jazz festival. It's funny, but hey, whatever.
Yeah.
But so these different funk bands in Holland, they got their own way. They're a little bit their own style, of course. They don't sound the same. But Octave Pussy has been around for a while. They're very motivated and really active with records and stuff. Yeah.
So when did you first get to finally meet some of the P-Funk people?
Yeah, that of course that's again for you. You probably know how it goes. You hear the records, you become a fan, you're touched by the music. A little bit for me, it was a little bit from the sideline as a fan, and then all of a sudden, when you start making music, and even I want to do that too. Yeah, then you get into studios. I was for me, it was as a fan. I ordered some merchandise at the Bootzilla fan club in Cincinnati, and I put in a little picture of me on my bass with 7-Eleven. And that's basically what got it started to finally meet Bootsy and going backstage and I had a fan club for him a couple of years. So that was my first encounter, and with a real my idol basically. I was straight to the top. I didn't go via. I was, the first one I met was Bootsy Collins. When I went to the show where he was playing, a little anecdote. It was in Cologne, in Germany. It's like a 2-hour drive from here. My friend and I, it's a funk fan too. We went to the show, and we came in Cologne, and we drove there. Where is the venue? And we were looking. Should be somewhere here. There were no GPS stuff. You had to do it with maps. And I looked to the left, and I saw Bootsy walking there with Patty. I said to my friend, well, there he is. Let's stop the car. So I said, and of course, I sent my a picture with the bass and some letters, faxes. And Bootsy came to me. Oh, Bart! He recognized me. I got a hug right away. And when we were already hugging each other, and he said, oh, "Man, we were looking for the venue. We were looking too. So hop in the car." So after I think 1 minute, the first time I saw Bootsy, he was in the back of my car. And so we drove like 100 meters, and there it was. He stepped out. It was a small Dodge, but he opened the rear door and he let Patty out. And I said, "Well, Bootsy, it's not a big car." "Oh no, man, it's a space limo." So when I got home, I put that on the back of my car, space limo, a really small car. But that was my first encounter. Was right with the one. And backstage after the show, I mean that show, Bootsy shows. It's it's another program to tell about that show and what happened musically. But afterwards we hooked up and we talked a little bit. I met Mudbone for the first time, and the whole crew was hanging there. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning. Everybody was, "We want to go to the hotel." But it was awesome. And after that, when I was recording the first Dodge album,
I had that here.
yeah,
too. Got my copy also.
that's it. Yes, great one. Mudbone was in Holland somewhere. He lived in Paris. Yes, Mudbone lived in Paris, and a guy who knew me. I was recording that album. Hooked me up. And that was the second. That was Mudbone Cooper. Man, when you hear that guy sing, I'm ready now. That was it. My life is over. That is amazing. When he opens his, wow. So the first track on that little album, Neutronic Injection. Oh man, it was amazing. So then later, when we were recording with 7-Eleven, we got hooked up with Fred Wesley. These people are so nice. So you think, well, they're making funk, dirty, nasty P-Funk, but when you meet them, they're the kindest of the kindest people. Amazing. And so that's how it goes. Someone knows a guy, and then all of a sudden you're in the studio with them, and then they go again. For Mudbone, later on we hooked up with him again to do a few live shows, and then you see, and then as a bass player and a Bootsy fan, and a fan of Mudbone, and you're standing behind him, and he's singing the Mothership Connection, or those Bootsy lyrics, those chants. We're looking at on the stage. Look at this. What's going on? How is that possible that we are experiencing? I had to think. I looked at the interview you did with Ida Nielsen. She had I could relate to that a bit when she was playing with Prince. I mean, that's a different league, but hey. So, oh man, then all of a sudden you're playing bass with somebody you couldn't have imagined that would happen. So these are great gifts in the funk for me. Yeah. And,
Did you ever meet George also, or just the Bootsy guys?
Yes, we did we opened up for George Clinton in Paris. That was in 2013 as well. And we went up to a room where he was hanging. We made a picture, and I never really talked to him. No.
I want to point out some specific tracks that are among my favorites, if that's okay.
Yeah.
On that, the come out, hit the fan.
Which one is that?
And Dirty Frog.
Oh, Dirty Frog. Yeah. That's a 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
And
live.
On Get 'Em Down, which I have that one here. Yeah, I have that one here. Say P-Funk, which
Yeah,
Mudbone,
of
so
course.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We were back then. He was in the neighborhood, and we did some live shows and the recordings of these 7-Eleven tracks. And yeah, it's when he sings over your music, however bad it is, it sounds funky right away. Yeah.
He's a one of a
And
kind for sure. Yeah.
yes, yeah. And well, these Get 'Em Down was a kind of a remixed album, so we were between albums, and we had so much live material. So a guy we knew, it's called Handyman. He calls himself Handyman Maurice. He's got this studio where he can do magic things with computers and stuff and samples. He put these live recordings straight from the mixing board, put that in his computer, and remix it to say P-Funk. I don't know if that is one, but there are a few tracks on that album, on Get 'Em Down, remixed from live stuff. And yeah, that's really funny when you hear what he does, because you played it, live, but he mixed it into another song. It is used, but it's still funky. And so that was a great experience too, to get into that digital thing. I was with him a couple of times, and for my own stuff. Yeah, you can't understand. You have to be almost a computer programmer. At least that's how it looked to me, to get all these things together. And where do you get it from? And then all of a sudden, I got a nice piece of music.
Hot and funky. It was so great hearing Fred, on that.
Yeah. Yes. That was amazing. It's a nice story too. Fred played in Paradiso, that's in Amsterdam, with his, I think it was his band. He was playing with a band, I think from Belgium. He hooked up musically with them. And then we had already, in a way, backstage, took care of the appointment that he would come. The gig was Saturday in Paradiso, and so that before he would go on the tour bus or go to the next gig that was in Belgium, that's south of the Netherlands, that he would do a solo on a track especially for him, Fred. And so we got in from the hotel in the morning. The recording would be, I would say, from 10 to 12. Then he should be on his way to be on time for the next gig in Belgium, in Brussels. So we picked him up, and he said, "My horn is on the bus." So there was no horn. Oh, that's a problem. So the black horn, the soul system, it was on the bus. So okay. Everybody was calling everyone, all the trombone players, all the horn players were calling their friends, and then we got some guy, I think he came on a bike, brought a trombone, and well, in the studio after a cup of coffee or something, there he goes. So and then he did another solo on another track. What's the name of that track? And Shake the Cake. So he's on 2 tracks on that album. So, and we took him in the car of Marcel, the guitar player. We took him to Brussels and grabbed a bite to eat, and then he joined up with his band, and we went home. It was very nice. It was a very short meeting, couple of hours in the studio in Amsterdam, but that's the same thing when he strikes out his horn and starts playing the wave.
No one in the pocket like him.
There's nobody who does it or can do it. I don't know what it is, but yeah. So we were amazed and flattered that he would do a track, even two, and not a solo. But it's I always thought that the track Fred, it's too fast. It's a fast that's of course the combination of musicians, and then finally it comes to this rhythm. But when I listen back to it, it should be a little slower. It's really tight. It's okay. It's what it is. But when you talk about Fred, I think of, oh yeah, it's a fast track.
Mm-hmm. Then on the Live in Paris, I really liked your bass spotlight on Hot and Funky.
Yes. In the little solo in the first track, also a fast. What's it called? Hot and Funky.
Yeah.
Fast track.
Yeah.
It was nice. That show. There were so many people, and they were. It was raining, and the audience, maybe I don't know, 20,000 people, were standing in the mud like this, with their feet jumping up in the mud. That was the dirtiest. When you talk about Live in Paris, always have to think of the rain and the mud of that festival ground. But the front of the little album, you see a piece of the audience. I don't know who took the picture. They're enthusiastic and jumping around and didn't care about the mud, with their ankles in it. Maybe that's makes it funky as well. Yeah, the music was good, and we were standing ankle deep in the mud.
Yeah.
And it's splashing. Yeah.
Did 7-Eleven ever consider or come close, or maybe you even did, I'm unaware of it, come to the U.S.?
Yeah, in 2006, that was. Yeah. We had we were in contact with Slapback, Jar House band, and we would together make a little tour. So it's kind of a dual funk show, two bands. But in a way, that didn't happen. Things came up, and just before the finish, just before it was canceled.
Mm-hmm.
It was canceled. It didn't happen. So, yeah.
Jared's a great guy too. He's been on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This man is so full of humor. I wouldn't say he's a funny guy, but yes. And also in his music, of course, he's a serious musician. He's multi-talented. He can play drums and bass, guitar and keys, and sing. And couldn't choose what's the best. Maybe bass, though. But when you see him drum, but it's always with a kind of humor in it. He's not too serious about himself, so that makes it, But he can play all the Bootsy tracks. I heard him play. We played with him, and I did a few guest appearances with Slapback, and he plays the Bootsy riffs just as easy and very well. He can do it.
Well, I know on their live recording, I think it was a DVD too, maybe. They did covers of like Disco to Go and Atomic Dog, and they're one of the few groups that, sounded like as good as the actual.
Yes.
Yes,
exactly. They could measure up. Yes.
So in '98, you came out with, I think it was '98. Like you said, Neutronic injection. What inspired you to go off and finally do your own thing?
Yeah, nice how natural things evolve. With 7-Eleven, we recorded a few things before '98. Also, our own album to come out, and we did a few tracks on other samplers. But when you record something, you always start with drums, bass, guitar, rhythm guitar, keyboards. Then you got the horns, and then you got vocals, and then after that, a beat ring, the tambourine or the cowbell or whatever. But when you start recording, it's mostly on a headphone. You sit in the studio, I hear my own bass. Yeah, I got all these effects, and they got this definition. The Bootsy sound is kind of liquid, the Neutrons, and that sounds good. And then all these other instruments come on top of it, and what remains is, you know what I mean? Where's my the sound is gone. It's covered in a house of music. It's okay because the bass is the basis. But it didn't. It was I was a little bit disappointed. Every time after each recording, the bass is covered, smothered by other instruments. So now I want to do something, with the bass up front, and I did. And that's not really with the band. I did it with the handyman, with the guy with the studio and the digital stuff. And you don't have a drummer, but you got beats. Put on a beat and you play the bass, and you put another bass on top, and more bass. So then all of a sudden you got a bass album. And when somebody is playing guitar or vocals, I took care that the bass sound, the definition was still intact, and that's how it came about. I mean, I wouldn't say it was frustration, but it was. I've always felt a little bit it's a pity. The nice definition of the bass sound is mixed back to be functional for the music. And when I can do my own thing, my own project, I can put the bass up front. So it's very much a bass guitarist album. Bass guitar players know what's going on. They know the stacking of the bass riffs, how you do that, and how you and the effects. A lot of guys I spoke, are interested in the effects. What kind of effect do you use, and how do you use it? And so that's how that started.
Well, this record, I got to call out the bass on Ram Power.
Ram Power.
Yeah, that's pretty fierce. And,
with the guest players, yeah.
You got the real Bootsy flavor on the title track for sure.
Yeah, it was nice. It was the real first track ever for me to record. I think it took me a year to get that figured out with pre-recordings, and but when I listen to it now, I do that, and you can do it now in 5 minutes. But back then, the first track was a long pregnancy before I took that out. But I listened to it the other day. It still has it, but it's I played it very neat because I rehearsed it so much, and then and now when I record something, it's okay, shouldn't be perfect, so it's okay. Better real than perfect, and it shouldn't be off key or too late or too early, but can be a little rough around the edges. But back then, that track, and I didn't know how to do it, so I made a kind of a voiceover as if I came from my car stereo. Try to mix Dodge and P-Funk and bass and cars, and so that's that track. And the cover is nice because in the engine bay, it's full with the bass effects. There are 3 Neutrons in it. Do you know anything about pedals?
A little. I mean, I play some guitar, and I know Bootsy, of course, with the Neutron, but
yeah. So there are 1,000 bass effects for sale. They all got funny names: Neutron, bass balls, bass walk. Big muff, and yeah. So I thought, well, how can I make a combination of Dodge and bass? So I opened up my hood and put in the effects with some wiring in it, and oh, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's a
little
great
little bit
idea.
corny, and then the star bass in the back, in the back of the trunk is the bass. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, too corny, but hey. And then the only problem with this album was it took me a lot of time. I never did it before. When you're in a band and you got the band dynamics, you can go with that. But making a move of your own, that for me it took maybe a year, maybe longer. So then the guy Dice, our manager said, "Hey man, what's up with that Dodge album? Well, I only got 6 tracks. It's not enough. Uh, Release it. Even with 6, get it out. It takes too long. People are waiting." So I released it with 6 tracks on it. But that was also the critique. Is that a word? The problem with it, that it was it's a good album. It's way too short. So after 5 years or so, I complemented with 3 other tracks and released Neutronic Injection Deluxe.
Yeah, that's the one I have.
Yeah,
Deluxe.
Deluxe. So I put some tracks on top of it, and this one came along with a 7-Eleven release. So it's nice these days. Bringing out a CD is of no importance. Nobody cares.
Well, some
I
of us
can,
still care.
yes. I mean, when you release an album and you write to a venue, "Hey man, we got a new album out." "No, okay, well, and a new album, new material." Yeah, so there's nobody writes about it. I mean, about us or Dodge. It's not as interesting anymore as back in the day. I don't know exactly when that changed. Maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's a shame, I think. But, some of the vinyl aficionados, help keeping it alive, I think.
That's true. Vinyl. Yeah.
There's much more to this great Truth and Rhythm interview. Just continue on to the next part of the episode. Also, be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you've already done so, please share it with friends. And become a member by joining Truth and Rhythm on Patreon or consider donating at funkandstuff.net. Thank you very much.